Tonight on episode 33 of the Penthouse Basements podcast, we head back to the Thought Bowl for a spoiler-free Last Jedi discussion. Listen to us awkwardly stumble over ourselves as we try not to spoil this movie. And we successfully do so. There are no spoilers in this discussion. I repeat, there are no spoilers. Episode 33 of the Penthouse Basements podcast starts right now.
The Penthouse Basements Podcast.
Penthouse Basements Podcast. Penthouse Basements
You're listening to WOWD-LP Tacoma Park, and this is the Thought Bowl. I'm Pete.
I'm Heather.
And we are here with
David Lomison.
David Lomison, renowned, internationally known movie critic, fresh off of seeing the latest Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi.
Will it be my last Star Wars movie ever seeing because I'm bitter? Stay tuned.
So all three of us here, Pete, Heather, and David, have seen it within the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
So let's go around. First, Heather, what did you think of?
Well, first, I just want to let our listeners know we are going to try our very, very best to avoid spoilers. But if you haven't seen it yet and you're like, I don't want any spoilers, maybe don't listen just in case someone slips out. But we're going to try.
You should listen to the show.
Yeah, never tell anyone to turn off. We're giving Pete's credit card number. We're going to sprinkle it in throughout. So continue to listen.
We'll try to stick to what was shown on the trailer. I think that's kind of That's kind of fair. And we'll talk in general terms.
Which trailer, Pete? There's 20.
Well, the few trailers that were shown. So we'll basically talk about characters, and we're not going to.
Well, not some characters.
Oh yeah, of course, not spoiler characters, but just characters that were seen on one of the many trailers.
All
yes.
Right. All right. Well, I enjoyed it. It took me a little bit to get into it, but then it gripped me, and I got into the story and found it. There's always I feel like I shouldn't be saying this, but there's always so many explosions. Like maybe we can talk about this later. Like no one goes to Star Wars expecting not to have any explosions, but
it's 50% of the title.
Yeah, I know.
The
Wars,
war part.
stars. yeah, but there was enough really interesting moments to make me happy, and I liked the way they used humor. There was a lot of humor, and I think most of it worked.
Yeah.
I think most of it worked.
All right, David.
Well, okay. So I said this before we started. I had to look up the runtime because I was convinced it was over 3 hours. It felt like it was over 3 hours, but it was only 2.5. And within all of this, I think that there is a good 1.5 to 2 hour Star Wars movie. There's a great Star Wars movie hidden within there. And there's some parts that people have problems with. I don't think that we can go into many of them. I can say that the acting was a little uneven with some of the people, particularly people with purple colored hair, maybe. But there's enough cool moments in the movie that I would still recommend it. Like there's some great best in the series moments in it. I would still recommend seeing it. It's not better than Force Awakens though.
I thought it was okay. I did think it was a very long movie. I felt like I was watching Reds or Dr. Zhivago or the special edition of Apocalypse Now that was 4 hours long. But I was a little tired when I went. I went to the noon showing, and I was a little tired and sleepy from the previous night. But I thought it was decent. I saw it in 3D. Did you too?
No,
Heather? You didn't see it in 3D?
I think I must have had surround sound, although maybe that's all movies now, because it was very the sound getting right deep into me.
Yeah, you really felt the sound. Yeah.
We live in a 3D world, Pete. You don't need to go to the movies to feel that, man.
But I thought the effects were pretty. pretty good 3D. I might see it again without the 3D effects just to see. But I thought the use of the 3D, probably next to what was the movie with George Clooney when they were in space?
ER the movie.
No.
Gravity. I think
Gravity.
you're
Yeah,
talking about.
next to Gravity, I thought it was the best use of 3D. I mean, I like 3D movies, and if it's usually offered, I'll go see it. A lot of times, I think it's a waste. Like a Transformers movie I thought it was a waste of 3D. But I thought this, being in outer space, and especially certain scenes, certain fight scenes, really added to it. But I thought it was a decent movie. But once again, I'm still confused why A-list actors and actresses are not. I pounded this last night. How come we don't see Brad Pitt? How come we don't see Jennifer Lawrence? How come we don't see Glenn Close?
Why?
in these
I
movies?
can't believe this matters to you. Out of the grand
does.
scheme of things, like, yeah, I want to see Zach Galifianakis in the next Star Wars movie.
Well, he's
Like
not
I
an
said-
A. I mean, like the top. I'm talking about the top people. I mean, this is one of the most anticipated movies, and to not have one of the top actors or actresses in it, I think it's kind of strange because I'm really, I gravitate to the top people, like, Brad Pitt.
You're just a trendsetter, Pete.
I
I've
am.
always said that about you.
Well, I feel like these people are A-list actors and actresses for a reason. It's because they draw you in, and I felt like watching this movie, no one's acting like really like drew me in.
Is that what your reasoning is? Because you don't feel like the level of acting is up to par with somebody who is a regular on a third-rate HBO show?
Yeah, that and the magnetism of those people. I just think it lacked really. I mean, it could have been anyone. It could have been Denzel. It could have been Glenn Close. It could have been.
I think
Brad
he's
Pitt.
Heather. I think he's talking about more of an overall acting
Right.
level. Would
Yeah.
you agree
well,
with that?
Because at first I was going to say, well, I think that there's a good reason to use non-well-known A-list actors. Although now, of course, since Force Awakens, they are well-known. Daisy Ridley was
Right,
just
right.
in Oriental Express, which I haven't seen yet. No spoilers, if you but because both it helps you. I mean, well, good actors, when you forget who they are when you're in the middle of the movie too, but there's still often that's Brad Pitt,
Right,
but you
right.
totally can get more into the character. And also it gives, people are going to go see Star Wars whether it has Glenn Close in it or not. So, it gives a good chance to bring up the lesser known actors and actresses. But if you're talking about level of acting, that's an interesting point. And like you said, I believe that David, it was uneven.
Yeah.
And it would be interesting to see what, he's not still alive, I don't think, but like Jack Nicholson thrown in there or
He
something.
is alive.
Would be, he
I
is.
think.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Shockingly.
Jack. I'm so sorry.
He listens to this.
Okay, Jack.
Or Tim Allen. I
Can
thought
you
Tim
make
Allen would
a-
have been really good.
He's
in
dead.
that.
He's dead. I
Oh, is
think.
he?
No, I have no
Okay,
idea.
we'll just
Or
kill
is
him off
he?
for bringing him
Ooh.
back to life left and right here.
But yeah, like, Jack Nicholson or just someone. I mean, especially because I was waiting for a certain actor to appear, and this person never did. And I was kind of like, and I really was expecting some cameos from some big people, because don't you think Brad Pitt's agent like approached them and said, hey, like, Brad's a giant Star Wars
Is
fan.
he really a giant Star Wars fan?
Well,
though? Do you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's like while he was filming Thelma and Louise, he was like playing around with a toy lightsaber.
Yeah,
between
he could have.
takes.
Yeah. But you figure, like, there's a lot of, famous, because they did that with Star Trek, because, someone like Whoopi Goldberg went to them. She's like, I'm a giant Star Trek fan. I would love, if you're doing another series, I would love to be in it. I'm just really surprised how popular Star Wars is, that no A-list level actor approached them and said, I would love to be in this.
Well, and who do you, I mean, obviously there's casting directors for this, but with it now being owned by Disney and all, who do you think has control over the say in the cast?
It's Walt Disney's brain in a jar has
Yeah.
total control over everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, that's what I suspected.
It's Mickey Mouse going, ha ha. But you would think, because a lot of times movies aren't made because there's not A-level actors in it. Well, maybe, like you say, it could have been a budget thing. They're like, why should we give Brad Pitt, once again, I'm harping on Brad Pitt, $20 million to be in this
You're
movie.
the president of the capital area Brad Pitt fan
Brad-
club,
yeah.
Pete.
Because I also thought, what's his name, was kind of doing a parody of Brad Pitt's character in 12 Monkeys also.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, you could just got Brad Pitt because he did that really good in 12 Monkeys. If you're having, someone kind of parody that same type of role.
Now, if you're Brad Pitt's new agent, you should give a disclaimer, right?
Well, okay. So, and Heather, you might have touched on this earlier, but I think the reason why you don't need to have A-list actors in this is because the Star Wars property is the A-list actor.
Right, it's the brand.
You could just fill it with anybody. Like, you and I could be weird aliens in the next Star Wars movie.
Ooh, that would be fun.
And will it? After what we just saw, will it?
They could even have a contest where, be in the next Star Wars movie, get to have a role, like, in one of the, in a scene, like in the first movie, the bar scene and everything.
Oh yeah, the cantina scene.
Yeah. You could, that. How fun would that be?
Yeah, it would be pretty
imagine.
fun.
And speaking of that cantina scene, there was kind of the equivalent in this movie. What did everyone think about that particular scene?
Well, I didn't want to give any, but yeah, I guess that every movie has some kind of a party scene or something.
Yeah.
I thought it was well done. I did. I liked that scene.
It looked nice. I don't know if it belonged in a Star Wars movie, Pete. And frankly, that was where the movie began to
Kinda
slow
unravel.
to a crawl. And, oh, man, spoilers.
I know.
No.
Jeez, you
spoilers.
can't talk about anything.
But what we can do is play a song. I just got the soundtrack, which is a very good soundtrack.
It is.
So we're going to play a
cool.
song from that particular scene. You're listening to WOWD-LP Tacoma Park, and this is The Thought Bowl. And that was a track from the new Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi. And the title of that track was Canto Bight, B-I-G-H-T, which I think was the name of the area where that scene happened.
Yes.
I think as a bite is like a swamp or something.
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
Maybe.
All right. Yeah, kind of reminiscent of the cantina scene. Even the music kind of alluded to the cantina scene in the A New Hope episode 4, kind of in a way, or the Return of the Jedi music that was playing.
Yeah. I don't know what else. You can't really say anything. Like, it's just because you don't want to spoil anything for anybody. The people that I trust, they hated this movie. And it's so frustrating because if you look on a site like Rotten Tomatoes, you see the critics are going gaga over this movie, but the fan reception has been middling to negative, I think. And there are some moments in the film that would lead you to believe that plans have been scrapped, that they weren't happy with certain things, but there's the only explanations that I can think of for certain things. I don't know.
Yeah, it felt a bit like more than was put in. Like you said, there was like a base of a really good movie in there, but like it was kind of 1.5 movies or one and other ideas of that they had that they're like, well, we didn't follow this path, but we want to throw that in too. So
and then someone saw The Force Awakens a higher up and said, "There's some things you did in this that I want you to fix in this movie." So certain characters are now gone that you would think were leading to bigger things, and now they're just gone. So can't say anymore. Can't really say anymore. So,
I think it's really
hard to talk about this with no spoilers.
I think it's a hard task to do this to everyone's so everyone's satisfied. I felt that Force Awakens kind of exceeded people's expectations, so they were really hyped up for this. And like I said, you're not gonna please everyone with this, and there'll be another movie in a year if you don't like.
JJ's coming back for the next one,
and I believe Ron Howard's directing the next one.
Oh,
no,
wow.
he's doing the Han Solo movie.
Oh, he's doing the Han Solo.
Yeah,
movie.
JJ's coming back for episode 9.
So
Oh,
wait,
okay.
Han Solo one would come out next year, and then is episode 9 the year after that, or what's the timeline?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
We're not doing any fact checking, so don't even think about it.
Okay.
Just have to make ourselves look dumb by
Right.
saying.
But yeah, the opening scene of Force Awakens was extremely powerful. I know not just for me, but it was extremely powerful for a lot of people, and it really felt like I was seeing the original Star Wars when I'm older than you guys. I was 8 when I saw it.
I was 7.
Yeah. And how old were you? Or do you?
I was
not even.
I was a gleam in me
You were
father's
a gleam
eye.
in your father's eye. Okay, so I was 8 when I saw it, and I felt like I was seeing that again, but with a female Luke.
Right.
It was, and which I think was the intent to give give real agency to a female character.
We're trying to get back to Last Jedi. Like, I would say that the opening scene of this movie is very strong, like very action packed. Like, you know what is happening. The certain people are on the run from other people, and things are happening. And one criticism that I saw was there's a very emotional high moment that happens within the first, say, 10 minutes, and it might have been too much too early, maybe.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, maybe I needed to rewatch Force Awakens right before this, which I didn't do, but I had no clue. It started, and I was like, okay, all this is going on. I don't know
Yeah,
what's
I kind of felt
going
the
on.
same way too.
Yeah.
Like, what happened at the end?
It's a fast-paced opening.
Right.
And this picks up right after,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Right after the end of Force Awakens. This
And what if you had to pick a year that this movie is based in? What year would you say?
2018.
Oh, okay. So it's present day time,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
in an alternative dimension or something.
Well, it's a long time ago in a galaxy far,
Oh,
far
yeah,
away.
yeah.
So
It's like
Negative
100,000
2018.
years ago or something.
it's a million years ago
Really?
in a galaxy far, far
But
away.
if it's
Huh.
far, far away, then wait, how does our speed of light and all that work? Is it actually now?
I mean, far, far
Or-
away for us is Alexandria from where we
Right,
Yeah,
are
well,
right
that's
now.
true.
So-
It's on the other side of the
If
river.
you can't Uber there, it's
Our
very
galaxy on the
far.
other side of the
Yeah.
Do
river.
they have Uber in this universe, in the universe of The Last Jedi?
That's a good question.
Yeah, right. Could you? That would really change things up if you were getting attacked and you could just take out your phone and
Yeah.
call a Lyft or some kind of a car service, and a spaceship would just come
Yeah.
pick you up.
It's all monopolized by the Huts. They control
They
everything.
do.
Mm-hmm.
And the other weird thing I thought, they're still talking about fuel.
Yeah.
Like, haven't you got to a point now where we're past like fossil fuel? Like, you're
Right,
worried
right.
about how much
Well,
fuel is in
okay,
your spaceship?
so that is another criticism. I was not really. I didn't really think that the space stuff was that much of a negative. That's for more intelligent people to pick apart.
Right.
The fuel stuff
The
and
falling
the
in
escaping,
space,
yeah,
things
yeah,
like
that.
Maybe
breaking
someone
up
who
and
wrote a
starting
book
to fall.
about the physics of Star Wars.
We don't know anybody like that.
Yeah.
We don't know anybody like that.
But yeah, I just thought there was a couple scenes where like, oh, we're not going to have enough fuel. I'm like, you guys are still using fuel?
What do you think it runs on?
I don't
Pete?
know.
Love? You
Like
think the
nuclear
starships
energy or
run on
fusion
love?
or something besides like
Force.
fossil fuel? They got to stop at a gas station and like gas up the Millennium Falcon or something?
Starnoco
Yeah.
station coming.
Well,
at
that's
you.
why they have whole planets that are basically wastelands that are just to fuel the ships, I think.
Oh, okay. Like a
Yeah.
gas station, like a giant
Yeah,
gas
the whole
station.
the whole planet has
is a gas
just been
station.
like as if we gave our whole planet now up to which feels like we're doing sometimes to just, fueling our vehicles and our computers and everything. And
Oh.
Well, that's another thing I read. Heather, do you see parallels between the current political climate and this movie? Are they just like people reaching for things, or did you really think that they put stuff in intentionally?
I did see parallels, and in this one particularly, there was one point where it almost felt to me like something was saying that the evil and good weren't necessarily different in that if they were both having these Star Wars.
And that's a good point. That's a good point that Jeremy, a Penthouse Basements member that has been on this very show before, he brought up last night that one of the main themes of this movie is there is no longer a light side and a dark side. Everything's muddled now. Everything's gray. Because even what even the actions that a certain character did potentially to another character. We go back to that dream sequence 2 times, if you remember. Somebody is asleep. How we get 2 different perspectives of that. I think that was very well done. How they both saw, both people involved in that scene saw it in a different way, and it may have led to different paths.
Right.
For those characters.
Yeah. I thought that was a pretty interesting thing, and I did like the fact that Chewbacca became a vegetarian. I was really impressed with that.
Yeah.
I think you. I think
did.
you're talking out of your.
No, he did.
Your bantha hole, Pete.
You're listening to WOWDLP Tacoma Park, and this is the Thought Bowl, and I'm Pete.
I'm Heather.
And this is David Lomison.
World-renowned movie critic.
All-star podcast host.
Oh, and you have a cool Chewbacca shirt on
Chewbacca
today.
with a cross.
Yeah, I got
Jesus.
this. I got
Jesus
this.
Chewbacca?
I got this from some good friends for Christmas. Shout out to Vicky and Josh.
Oh, it's very cool.
Nice.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool shirt.
This is great for audio. Yeah, you're wearing a great shirt too, Pete.
Yeah,
it's real
really
nice.
Cool. It's awesome. It
Yeah.
glows and spins around and everything.
I have a good shirt on too.
Yeah. Oh, you have a Santa
Santa is my
and the
homeboy.
Star of David. Is that the Star of David?
Star of David.
Yeah.
I think it's just a star.
Just the star. Not every
Yeah.
star is a Star of David.
Yeah.
What about your pants, Pete?
There's
What are they?
sweatpants. Black sweatpants with a white stripe.
You
Okay,
can-
moving on.
You can go to the Thought Ball on Facebook and
see
let,
everyone's
let
shirt.
us know.
Yeah, we're gonna
maybe
take a
we'll
picture
take
afterwards and you
picture
can see.
We're just gonna
What
edit
art?
all this out.
What
We
art?
can edit all this out, right, Pete?
No, this is not a podcast.
Oh.
We've
This is
been
live and direct.
Yeah.
So it's Christmas time, and we forgot about. Has everyone erased from their memory the Star Wars Christmas special?
I think I have because I'm sure I saw it, but I do not have any recollection of it.
I was not alive when it was on, but I have seen it. Riff Tracks, who are some of the guys from
okay.
Mystery Science Theater, they do an overdub track similar to MST3K over top of movies, and I've seen that version, which is hilarious, and I would not recommend watching it without that accompaniment because it's just so bad and bizarre.
Yeah. It's a strange Christmas, and Lucas did his best to basically suppress it, and he did a pretty good job. There's some, bootleg copies that are floating around that if you're a diehard Star Wars fan, you've probably have gotten access to it and seen it.
He said if he had a hammer and time, he would go around and destroy every copy.
Wow.
He did not. And then there's like conflicting things because he has said, "Oh, I had nothing to do with it." But I think the showrunner was like, "Yeah, we sent him dailies after filming every day, and he approved them." So
Remind
who
me
knows?
what happened in that Star Wars
It
Christmas
was
special.
most of it was Chewbacca's family.
B. Arthur danced around.
Yeah. It was almost like a variety show.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw the Brady Bunch variety show that they did outside of the TV show. I think it was kind of in that vein because I think a lot of shows had their own thing that was outside of what their normal show was with dancing and singing and comedy bits. So
Yeah.
I think this was an attempt to
And they were,
Except to
well,
cash
it's
it on.
popular now. It's Star Wars. We'll just slap this together.
Right.
With Star Wars.
because I guess this was between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
I imagine. Yeah. So not because people don't really realize like Star Wars was a big movie when it came out, but it really wasn't as iconic as we view it now until I think a few years. Well, I think the main reason is because they waited so long in between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. And I think the anticipation of the Empire Strikes Back movie really built up the original Star Wars movie.
Right. Although I was talking with my husband last night about like he feels like he was age 5 when he first saw Star Wars and feels like he was perfectly placed to have it just be like in his canon, like to
Right.
have those 3 movies.
Right.
Whereas being 8, by the time, what year did Empire Strikes Back come out?
81, I think.
81. So 81, I was already, 13 going on 14. I don't even think I saw that in the theater. I think I saw Return of the Jedi first and then later even though I loved Star Wars as a kid, it was
Right.
huge for me. But by the time the next one came out, I had just kind of moved on it wasn't. I didn't have the same feeling for
Right,
it,
yeah.
and they lost me a little bit there.
Yeah, when Star Wars came out, I was 7, and I was literally obsessed to the point where, like, I couldn't do my schoolwork because literally that was all I thought about was Star Wars for 2 or 3 years.
Did you have any of the little action figures?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I had Dark Vader and all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And when Empire Strikes Back came out, I had the Luke that could fit inside the Tauntaun.
Oh, cool.
You could, like, stick it in its stomach and hide him in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that was
excellent.
pretty cool.
I remember really having a crush on R2D2. It's like it's an
Wow.
insight into how kids really see things differently, and I mean, it was as much a crush as on a person.
Like
Just,
a David Cassidy crush, like the same type
I didn't
of
like David
David Cassidy,
Cassidy,
no.
but I mean, I also had a crush on Luke and Leia. It was like
Oh,
all
okay.
three, not Obi-Wan, sorry,
Uh-huh.
but you know,
What
all,
about,
and
Han Solo?
he was too grown up, I think, at
Uh-huh.
that age. At
Oh,
8 years
okay.
old, he was. I mean, later, I probably
He's in
would
his
have.
50s in those
Yeah.
movies
Yeah.
already.
Yeah,
His face
so-
looks like a catcher's mitt now.
Right. I mean, I liked him. He was really fun and cool, and I liked the scenes he was in.
But you felt Luke and Leia were
Luke
closer
and
to your
Leia were
age.
accessible,
Uh-huh.
and R2D2 was just adorable, and I wanted to hang out with him.
Would you marry R2D2?
At that age, I would have. Yeah, not now. I think he's a little. He's gotten kind of jerky with age. Like
Uh-huh.
looking back now, I'm like, he's a little sarcastic. I mean, sarcastic's good, but
Yeah.
a little full of himself.
Right.
Yeah.
He has to deal with C-3PO.
Oh
All
yeah,
the
that's
time,
true.
so,
That's true.
ooh.
You give him that. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, he's in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
I've never liked C-3PO. I have
Really?
never liked C-3PO.
I thought he kind of added some type of.
I mean, he's
voice
a
of
comic.
reason,
He's a
you know.
comic relief.
And he's
Yeah.
always,
You know.
and like I think he was there to balance Han Solo's like, I'm a smuggler. This is how things go, and C-3PO
Right.
will be like, hold on, this is
We have to follow the rules.
right. I'm doing
Yeah.
some calculations, and this doesn't seem quite right.
Well, if only you could just shut off somebody that's annoying you, though.
Yeah.
like you can with
C-3PO,
C-3PO.
yeah, which they did quite frequently. And what did everyone think about the new characters, the little bird type things? What were they called?
porgs.
Those are in the previews.
Yeah, those were in the previews.
Okay. Too cute for me. Too
Ewok-y?
like I saw somebody comment, like what they thought of them, and they're like merchandising. I'm like, yeah, it's like I see these in the movie, and I can picture like they're just thinking how they're gonna make the little toys and the little things and stuff. And
Well, yeah, that's the thing. So, like, at least with Ewoks, they were like woven into the plot. Like the porgs, like they just seem like they're there, literally, like you said, just to sell stuff.
Mhm.
Classic Disney,
Right.
and also with the little crystal critters. They also were. I mean, they were sort of woven in because as they were running through a certain place, they were able to follow them.
Yeah, and they kind of seemed
Yeah.
like this was their planet.
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
And they were.
they were
and
more
there.
in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even a lot of the world building in The Last Jedi. Sorry to go back to The Last Jedi, but the final planet. And I think they've shown that in previews. The salt planet.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It just looks beautiful with the contrast between the red and the
white.
The white, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here, speaking of world building and stuff, if you were working on Star Wars, what would you want to do? Would you want to be an actor? Would you want to get to be a casting director? Would you want to get to, create some of the makeup or the worlds or write the story?
I would want to be the person who got them to hire B. Arthur for the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Casting director?
Yeah, I would be
Casting?
like, we got to get Maude. She hasn't been in the Golden Girls by this point, but we got to get Maude. She really speaks to the Star Wars
Yeah.
fans.
I think I would like to be in it with the caveat.
Be
of
in it?
Be
Yeah,
in it,
right.
yeah.
I heard that too.
Depending on how much I'm standing in front of a green screen. Because I really had a hard time telling what stuff was people standing in front of a green screen.
In the new one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, there are some scenes and where the CGI looked prequel level, like just didn't look good, and that's surprising. How like in the Force Awakens, JJ toted how we're going back to practical effects.
Yeah.
We're not going to use much CGI, and there's certain scenes, particularly in the parts where the casino music was. There were some scenes in that where it just looked like they were in a CG world, and really not good, Pete. Just not good. I don't know what I want to grab you by the lapels and shake you, Pete.
I thought it looked good. Well, I saw it in 3D, so I thought some of those things.
No, I saw it in 60. Yeah. All right, I just wasn't a fan.
I saw it in 2070.
It doesn't matter how many D's are in your eyeballs, Pete. This could have been so much better.
So
you think
3 Gs.
It could have been cut down to an hour and a half, hour and 45-minute movie and been great.
Yeah, I really think so. There's going to be a YouTube fan edit of this movie.
Sure. Is there
and
really?
it's going to be amazing, I think.
That's
there's certain parts. A person comes back that we haven't seen for a while, and that is a great scene. It's a great scene.
Getting away from anything that could be a spoiler, just talking about in general, like fight scenes and explosion scenes and things in any kind of action movie, because Star Wars is an action movie.
Yeah.
It's, action romance. Do you all find, like, I mean, for me, watching like a fight scene, there's like a few things, they have the few fights, and then I want it to move on, but usually it goes on and on and on and on. And is that something that is actually, I mean, obviously that must be interesting to some audience members.
I think in terms of Star Wars movies, in the past, this one had more than one, which you touched on last night when we discussed this, Pete. Star Wars movies, the good ones, have had lightsaber fights that have depth to them. Like Return of the Jedi, you have Luke and Vader fighting at the end.
Right.
This is their final conflict. Luke is trying to turn his father to the light. In Empire, you have Vader and Luke facing each other for the first time. Vader's sort of like toying with him. He wants to try to capture his son to bring back to the Emperor, and he reveals to him that he is his father. And in this movie, you have like 2 or 3 decent lightsaber fights that do have things behind them. But like you were saying, I think there's too many. There's too many fight scenes that it hits too many crescendos. And I think that has to do with the length. This movie's too long. Yeah. It's bloated.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go drink myself.
So J.J. Abrams, if you're listening,
he is. He is.
He's one of the biggest fans.
Disney has him chained in a basement somewhere.
Oh,
like you need to write.
Yeah,
because we own everything now.
Yeah. Speaking of that, so Disney just recently acquired parts of Fox, and most of it that they acquired has to do with the Fox Studios.
20th Century Fox.
20th Century Fox, and which includes major franchises as The Simpsons and X-Men.
Aliens.
And the streaming service Hulu. They now own a 30% controlling interest in that. So Disney is saying, going forward, what's going to happen, they're going to take everything they have off of Netflix, which they're already in the process of doing, and either putting that on Hulu, like the more adult-oriented stuff, and having their own streaming, like could be like Disney.com. That will be their traditional Disney stuff.
We're gonna get to see Deadpool fight Iron Man, though.
Yeah,
so
I do have a lot of the comic book.
No long-term effects by one company owning so
much.
Right.
Yeah, I think they said it's specifically to combat Amazon and Netflix. So this is how they're, basically Disney is doing this by having so much content that they can say, okay, we don't want this on your service because we have our own services now, like Hulu.
I mean, if I go to Disney and I get to go to like Simpsons Land, like I think that would be great.
Ooh,
I think that would be
awesome.
awesome.
I never thought about that, like them tying in stuff to their amusement parks.
Yeah, and then we get to see like X-Men versus the Avengers, maybe. That'll be cool, hopefully.
Yeah. Well.
Although we had high hopes for Last Jedi, Pete. We had high hopes for that.
It wasn't bad.
You're the voice of reason. And the length that you held that bad, that says it all. Listeners, you heard that. You can't erase that. There's no editing. I just found out there's no editing in this.
So I would rank it kind of on the Return of the Jedi. I would stick it maybe, of course, Empire Strikes Back, then Episode 4, then The Last Jedi, then Return of the Jedi, then Force Awakens.
You were not a Force Awakens fan. Why weren't you a fan of that?
I just thought it was too much of Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher. I thought they played that up too much, and it was just too much of them in that.
And here's a criticism of The Last Jedi that I can say that isn't a spoiler. This was brought up to me recently. They don't really deal with Han Solo's death at all. Like, I think he's briefly mentioned, but like, this is a central character who has who's had strong relationships with people. I think like Luke mentions him once, and that's it. Like, this was, a big deal, and this character's gone, and we don't refer to him, like, we don't get any kind of mourning, and it's not like there's a huge gap between episode 7 and 8. Like, they come one after the other. So
good point.
Yeah, I think this is I call this the Colonel Blake syndrome.
Why do you call it the Colonel Blake syndrome?
So Colonel Blake was written off of MASH. Initially, he wasn't supposed to die, because there's the famous scene where Radar comes in and says his helicopter crashed and he died. He originally wasn't supposed to be written off like that. He was originally supposed to be just written off like he's gone back home. But because of like the nasty like contract dispute that happened between the studio and the actor, the studio on a vindictive level did that, like literally.
Really?
Yeah, literally like killed him off. So I think in this case maybe it's something with Harrison Ford and the studio where they're like, we're not even, like something happened with a contract dispute where they're like, all right, we're barely even to mention that you were even existed in the Star Wars universe.
Well, he's had a dispute even back to Return of the Jedi because he wanted to die in that. And Lucas was like,
really?
No, you have to stay alive. Like, he didn't want to do any
kill
more
me
of these
for
movies.
that.
Yeah, I don't want to be in any more of these. And that's why I think his performance in Force Awakens is one of his best, because he actually like gives a crap.
Huh.
So,
And didn't he also break his leg or something? He had some type of injury that like sidelined.
I mean, he's
Force
a
Awakens.
90-year-old mummy man,
Right,
so
right.
the wind can't blow on him without.
So
something
actually,
breaking.
I think that's where this dispute could stem from, because I think it like was drawn out because he like fell off of something and was like injured and held up production for a long time. So I think maybe something with his compensation from the studio, there could have been some type of riff. Because it did seem weird that he was kind of like, like you said, not even mentioned at all. In
you
The Last
think
Jedi.
that it has to do with the contract dispute, that it's like that? Like, I think it might just be like a writing oversight.
JJ, give us a call and let us.
Or an editing oversight. They had such a long movie. Maybe they did deal with it, but then they decided, or they just cut that out because they had so many other, they would have had to cut out some of the explosions.
My mind is gonna explode. It's gonna be one of those explosions if the extended edition comes out it's like 3.5 hours. Like,
of course,
because that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah,
like, it's just like this movie. It can't be explained. It's so many good things, but so many bad, weird, mediocre things, and it's a mishmash of nerd jello. That's what it is. It's a nerd jello mold.
Would you have felt better if it was just a horrible movie, so you could say I hated every aspect of it, as opposed to saying there was a good movie within this?
No, because you never want to be back in the place where the prequels put you as a Star Wars fan. And it's funny because there are moments in this, as I said, with the CGI and other things, that reminded me of the prequels. And you don't want to go back there, because if we go back there, then we're headed to a bad place, because there's no change coming, because Disney's not getting rid of this. They own everything now, as we just said. So,
Speaking of the prequels, it's been a long time. I think well over 10 years. Well over 10 years. Any chance that they do remakes of episode 1, 2, and 3?
Remakes?
Yeah.
I mean, well, okay. So here's the thing. Check out Red Letter Media on YouTube. They're a good they've come out with really funny Star Wars prequel reviews. But I think that after Disney bought Star Wars, articles started coming out like, "Oh, the prequels, they're better than you remember," or like top 20 reasons why the prequels are actually good. And this is just revisionist history. Disney trying to build up one of the things that they bought, so that it's not just like thrown away. So I don't know if the prequels they're too recent. I don't know if Disney would want to spend the money to redo these movies, but then again, they want Star Wars to come at least one movie a year. So
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if they'd redo them, but maybe they'd have some more in that time period, like not literally redoing them, but just making them better, but looking at that time period from a different slant.
Like maybe do something that exists between episodes 1 and 2. Have like the little like 1.5 storylines,
or even in that same time period, but looking at from different perspectives and finding out what's happening in a different, because you're not seeing the whole universe.
You're not seeing the dark side.
Yeah,
and there are no females in the Empire.
Yeah, there are.
Who?
Wait, wasn't there a female who was always sitting there at the
I don't female villain. Like
female like
Dark
leaders,
Jedi.
like
Yeah,
leaders,
yeah.
like
upper management.
Okay, upper management. Yeah, right. Well, they are the evil side.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it would be interesting to see.
And you don't see their family life. Like
no, you don't.
They're just evil. There's no.
Austin Powers is the definitive the backstage family life of villain henchmen. We don't need to go into that. They did it perfect. So
or something from Darth Vader's side of like, hey,
you keep saying Dark Vader, Pete.
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
I can't say werewolf either. So. It's Dark Vader and werewolf.
Dark Vader. Yeah.
So if they do remake episodes 1, 2, or 3, Brad Pitt as Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's all I'm saying.
Ewan McGregor is not a big enough star for you? He's been in Brad Pitt stuff.
No, Brad Pitt's way bigger.
Now?
Yeah, Brad Pitt as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Leonardo as little Anakin.
The Ninja Turtle.
No, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's the Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
Pete, I don't know, man. I think you might be way off base with this. Like, why does it matter? Like, the level of acting I can see, but like, you don't need the big actors. It comes full circle. We're arguing about the same thing that we were arguing about in the
here
first
on
segment.
Tacoma Radio on the Thought Bowl.
On the Thought Bowl, yes, with renowned movie critic David Lomison.
This is what is in our heads, wondering why Brad Pitt is not playing more roles in Star Wars.
Noted Star Wars grouch Pete Pinocchio here. I don't know what to tell you. It's just you don't need big name. You don't need them. Like, because again, you have these weird aliens. You have fantastical settings. You have things that go deeper than like having a recognizable actor in the movie. Like that just takes away from the story. Like it's like the Will Smith syndrome, where like whatever part he plays in a movie, you don't see them as the character. You see them as Will Smith.
Right.
I don't know. Brad Pitt or Denzel or Glenn Close, I really think could have.
Glenn Close as Dark Vader. The next Star Wars movie.
That could be scary. And then you get a rabbit in the scene. That could get really scary.
Yeah. Oh yeah, from what was that movie?
Fatal Attraction.
Yeah. The famous rabbit.
Fatal Star Attraction.
The famous rabbit scene. So now we can get into holiday movies now in our last 10 minutes of our segment. All right, so
we got to figure out a way to tie this back into Star Wars.
The much debated topic of, is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
I mean, it takes place during Christmas.
So that's your only qualification?
Well, no, I'm just throwing out facts, Pete.
Just being the devil's advocate.
This is not a fake news radio show. Fact number 1: it takes place during Christmas.
And it's a Christmas movie. It might not be like a cheerful Christmas movie, but...
So you think as long as something takes place during...
Well, I think tone also has something to do. Like, there is a very early slasher movie called Black Christmas. And that obviously takes place during Christmas, but it's a horror movie.
Right.
Is that... would you consider that a... Christmas movie?
Yeah. Just a Christmas horror movie. Is that the one where Santa Claus is?
No, that's Silent Night, Deadly
Silent
Night.
Night, Deadly Night. Okay.
And what's the one with the snowman who like
Is
melts?
A snowman who melts people?
Who melts?
Are
He
you-
could be outside and he melts.
That's
and he-
Jack Frost.
That's it,
with-
Jack Frost.
No,
Yes.
that's a kid. That's a kid's movie.
That's a kid's movie. I thought it was a
Yeah.
horror movie.
No, I forget the one that you're talking about, but Jack Frost is the one where Michael Keaton dies and his spirit comes back into a snowman. Ooh, spooky!
And it's an evil snowman.
No, he's a good snowman.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm thinking of something
he's
else.
a friend to all.
Yeah, this movie, I forget what it is, but it's like an evil snowman who like melts outside, then gets under the door, where he
that's
appears
how he
like
gets
inside
in.
and like kills people.
That's clever.
But yeah, it's very campy, almost like killer clowns from outer
Ginger
space.
Does he
Dead
leave a
man.
pile of presents as like an ironic thing? Like
Ooh,
he melts
I don't know.
and
Yeah, but
left
he
presents
melts and you
behind.
see his hat, then like he reappears like inside.
Okay.
We don't want to get too graphic on this show. There might be children watching, although they might have all turned it off after we just like lambasted Star Wars for the last 35 minutes.
Like, Daddy, I don't want to see Star Wars now. They said it's terrible.
I think it's definitely worth seeing, unless some people who even don't like Star Wars at all still go to see them, because you just kind of have to know what's going on. It's part of our culture.
And it's funny because, and I want to ask both of you, when the movie was over, was there applause? Heather, was there applause?
Oh,
in
there
the
was
theater?
applause, and
Yeah.
I stayed till the end of the credits. Everybody didn't, but there was applause at the end, and there was applause in other parts of the movie. It was a festive atmosphere, even
Oh,
though
yeah.
I think maybe most people came the first night is never really the first night anymore. The first night is now the second night, because the first night is actually like the preview night.
I saw it on Thursday.
Yeah, exactly. So Thursday, I saw it the first night, but that was Friday.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah. What's
And,
up with
yeah.
them saying opening night's December 15th, yet they had showings December 15th?
I'm
Right.
part of the cultural elite, Pete, world-renowned film critic. So I
you
got
got
early
in. You got a
tickets.
press pass.
Yeah,
You got the
early
press show.
tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there were people with lightsabers and in costume and with Leia hair and all, and
Oh.
it was a fun atmosphere.
Pete, was there an ovation after you saw it?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like everyone. Like the biggest ovation I've seen for anything Star Wars oriented is when they played Episode 4 about 4 years ago at AFI. That was the most applause I'd seen. Like, when characters like showed up, and the funniest thing, the most applause was for Darth Vader when he showed up. It was like people were cheering.
Yeah.
It wasn't like boo. It was like, yeah, Darth Vader. It was almost. It felt like it was like a wrestling match, and it was like
right.
the villain that you still like have to love.
Yeah.
I mean, people applauded after Last Jedi when I went to see it.
Everyone?
Yeah. No, actually.
Did
but
you?
I mean,
Did you?
No, no, I didn't. But there were parts where there were certain parts, Pete. That's what I'm saying. That's this is the piece of Swiss cheese of Star Wars movies. The Last Jedi. That's what it is. It's a piece of Swiss cheese because it's a solid tasting cheese, but it's got some holes.
Yeah.
What type of cheese would you compare it to? Like
Swiss.
Swiss cheese?
Why are you
okay.
not? You're
I thought
zoning
you
out
no,
again,
I
Pete.
thought you were just using Swiss
Why you had
cheese
me
as a
on the
metaphor.
show? Why you had me on the show, Pete?
I thought you were using Swiss cheese as a
It's like,
metaphor.
oh, David's talking.
But
Time
you
for
need-
40 winks.
But you literally meant
Yes,
it's like Swiss
literally,
cheese.
yes.
If you gave it a cheese, it
Yes.
wouldn't be Munster or blue cheese.
No,
It would be Swiss
no,
cheese because of the
No,
holes.
Force Awakens is more of a blue cheese. Versatile. Everyone can enjoy it.
What, blue cheese?
Yeah,
You think
yeah.
everyone enjoys blue cheese?
I mean, the general populace
No,
of people.
I
You don't
think
like blue
Maybe a
cheese,
good
Pete?
cheddar. A cheddar.
yeah,
is
cheddar.
more like
Cheddar
it,
is
yeah.
cheddar is a cheese I think most people can agree on. But blue cheese, I think there's a dividing line between. I think people. One, it looks like mold, which it is.
It has
Yeah, but all
mold.
Kinda.
cheese has mold.
Yeah.
Well, it's more
That's fair.
visible on blue cheese. Like
Yeah.
you actually see.
Like extra mold is good. Like I like these lumps. These
Right,
lumps are
exactly,
mold. Oh, well,
yeah,
but
yeah.
they taste good. So
The prequels, we can agree, Limburger, all of them.
Yeah, definitely a real stinky cheese.
yeah, not great.
That's why they need to remake them into a nice cheddar cheese,
yeah.
starring Brad Pitt as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I mean, you don't think? I mean, those movies weren't good, so it's not going to be a Wolverine recasting Wolverine type situation where, like, I don't know if you guys heard this, but when Fox was bought out by Disney, they went to Hugh Jackman and they were like, "Do you want to play Wolverine now that the character is going to be given new life in an Avengers movie possibly?" And he said, "No, I'm done with that character. I want somebody else to do it." And it's like you may love or hate the X-Men movies, but I think he is so iconic and good in that role that it's going to be weird to see someone else play Wolverine in whatever Disney movie comes out with the X-Men in it.
Could we see crossovers with Wolverine in the next Star Wars movie? Anything is possible now.
Yeah. Maybe Wolverine versus Mr. Burns. Maybe.
I mean
Who
that
knows?
that happens in people's bedrooms and backyards with kids playing all the time.
Yeah.
Dark
so-
Vader versus
Dark
Wolverine.
Vader.
Yeah.
Dark Vader.
Yeah. So that probably is up on YouTube, like a little Lego thing or someone that someone has made. My nephew's got a channel. He could do something like that.
Yeah. So is everyone going to cancel their Netflix subscription now that there's not going to be any more movies on it, and it's just going to be? Would you still keep? You have Netflix, Heather, right?
I do right now, and there's like about 5 or 6 people. I think I know all of the people who are on my account, but when I pull it up, it's like my kids' friends and their friends.
Oh yeah, you give out your password. Yeah.
I mean,
Are you-
Netflix is losing money, aren't they? Because they're
Yeah.
doing too many lavishly produced shows.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Orange is the New Black and
Mhm.
Glow and Black Mirror and
House of Cards,
House
the
of
most popular
Cards,
shows,
yeah.
kind of going
So
through
everyone-
a reboot
yeah,
because
everyone
of a
loves
certain actor involved in that
Oh,
particular.
what?
Yeah.
You can't name it because
Series?
he's a Star Wars spoiler. Is
Yeah,
that what
yeah.
it is?
Devin Hasey. That's who. That's who I'm talking about. So I think Netflix is really gonna have to almost survive. Well, I think they said between what Disney is buying from Fox and what they already own, it's 40% of all the movies produced, or I don't know, ever produced, but represents 40% of the market. So there's still 60% of the market out there, but I think Netflix would have to say like, okay, we're like the independent film channel where we're gonna have
That could be interesting.
have more original content and more stranger, like
Right.
unusual things.
That would be a really good way to go.
Stranger Things.
Stranger
That
Things,
you
yeah.
Snuck that
Oh
in.
yeah, you
Crap.
did. You're right.
So Stranger Things. So that's an original Netflix
Yeah,
thing, isn't
I
it?
think
Oh,
so.
okay. Yeah, so I mean, if they're producing stuff like, if they can produce a Stranger Things type of buzz every year with a show, they might be able to survive. But yeah, like you said, they don't really have the budget of a major, because it seems like each episode of Stranger Things probably cost a lot of money
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
to produce, and you're basically producing a movie
And
every
if,
week.
if you have any competitors, just buy them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
guess
that's
what?
the way.
Disney just bought WOWD,
Yeah.
so we
No,
gotta pack it
no,
up.
no.
We gotta pack it up
We
and
don't-
get out of here.
We don't want the
No,
FCC
no.
coming here and saying,
But we are about out of time here, and this has been the Thought Bowl. We've been talking with David Lomison here, noted in
World-renowned
some
movie
circles
critic.
as a
Noted Star
world-renowned
Wars hater,
Star Wars,
apparently. Listen, I love Star Wars. I was just
Yeah.
so sad to see what I thought was a mediocre movie. Like, there's amazing parts. Go see this movie. There's amazing parts in it. You just have to sit through something that feels like it's over 3 hours to see
Right.
those
All
parts.
right. Stay tuned for Roadside Attraction.
thank you, Heather, and thank you, David.
Thanks, Pete.
Podcast.